First contact fears. The command center of Vigilance Station hummed with tension. Suspended in the violet gases of the Cygnus Nebula, the massive defense platform was the pride of the Galactic Concordat, a testament to the unity of 17 sentient species who had sworn never again to wage war upon one another. For 2 centuries, they had kept that promise. High Commander Zixren stood before the primary observation viewport, his 4 arms clasped behind his back, all 3 of his eyes focused on the distant speck of light that shouldn't exist. The Quintal commander's bioluminescent skin pulsed with anxious yellows and reds, betraying the calm he struggled to project to his crew. "Distance?" he asked, his voice a harmonious trill that belied his concern. Lieutenant Cressra, a willowy Arvelian with skin like polished silver, answered without looking up from her console. "Approaching the outer defense perimeter, Commander. Approximately 30 million kilometers and closing fast. Their velocity is impossible." "Nothing is impossible, Lieutenant. Merely improbable." Zixren turned to face the command deck. "Have they responded to hails?" "Negative, Commander. We've tried all known frequencies and protocols." The commander's middle eye narrowed. "Put it on the main display." The vast view screen at the center of the command deck flickered to life, replacing the peaceful starscape with a magnified image that sent a collective gasp through the assembled officers. The approaching vessel was unlike anything in the Concordat's extensive databases. Its hull was midnight black, broken only by flowing lines of crimson that pulsed like blood through veins. The ship's silhouette was predatory, all sharp angles and ominous protrusions that might be weapons, sensors, or something else entirely. "Magnify those markings," ordered Zixren, pointing to a series of symbols etched into the vessel's prow. As the image clarified, silence fell over the command deck. The symbols were unmistakable in any language of the Concordat. "Terran Alliance vessel DFIANC. Humans," whispered Cressra, her voice barely audible. "They're supposed to be extinct." "Not extinct," corrected Zixren. "Vanished. There's a difference. The humans had been part of early galactic history, a footnote in most educational texts, a strange, aggressive species from a heavy gravity world that had briefly ventured into the stars before disappearing without explanation over 3 centuries ago. Their homeworld, Earth, was now listed as uninhabited in all official records. "Alert all Concordat worlds," commanded Zixren. "Raise defense protocols to level Alpha, and keep hailing that ship." Aboard the TAV Defiance, Captain Ellis Reeves watched the alien station grow larger on the main view screen. Unlike the gaudy, ornate designs favored by most galactic powers, the Vigilance Station was brutally efficient, a weapon disguised as a diplomatic outpost. Ellis appreciated the honesty of it. "They're hailing us again, Captain," reported Communications Officer Maya Shang, her fingers dancing across her console. "Same frequencies as before." Ellis nodded. "Let them sweat a little longer." Her gaze shifted to Tactical Officer Sanjay Kapoor. Assessment. Kapoor, a veteran of 3 campaigns against the Centauri rebels, didn't look up from his station. 37 weapon emplacements visible, Captain. Mostly plasma-based, some antimatter. 3 hangar bays suggest fighter capacity of at least 200 craft. Defensive screens are online but not at full power. They're concerned but not yet terrified. Good. Dr. Abernethy, what do we know about the Quintal? That's a Quintal commanding that station, isn't it? Dr. Eliza Abernathy, the ship's xenoanthropologist, stepped forward. The oldest person on the bridge at 67, she dedicated her life to studying the species humanity had left behind when they retreated from galactic affairs. "Yes, Captain. The Quintal were a minor species during our last contact period. Amphibious humanoids with tetrachromatic vision and empathic abilities tied to their bioluminescence. They evolved on a high-oxygen world with strong tidal influences. They're natural diplomats, which explains their rise to prominence in our absence." Ellis drummed her fingers on the arm of her command chair. "And the Concordat. a mutual defense pact that evolved into a political union. 17 major species, dozens of client races. They've maintained peace for nearly 200 years through shared economic interests and cultural exchange. Their technology is advanced but stagnant. They've made few breakthroughs in the last century. Any threats we should be aware of? Dr. Abernathy hesitated. They're not militaristic by nature, Captain, but they are numerous and fear makes for dangerous policy. Ellis nodded, decision made. Lieutenant Chung, open a channel. On Vigilance Station, the sudden activation of communication systems sent officers scrambling to their stations. They're responding, Commander, announced Cressera. Zixren straightened his ceremonial sash and stepped onto the communication platform. On screen. The view screen shifted, and for the first time in recorded Concordat history, a human appeared before them. The creature was smaller than Zixren had expected, bipedal, with a frame that appeared fragile compared to most galactic species. Its skin was a rich brown, its head adorned with tightly coiled black hair pulled back from its face. Most unsettling were its eyes, forward-facing like a predator's, with a piercing intensity that seemed to evaluate everything. "This is Captain Ellis Reeves of the Terran Alliance vessel Defiance," the human said, its voice surprisingly melodious. "We come in peace." The translation matrix struggled briefly before rendering the archaic human language into modern Concordat standard. Zixren noted the irony of a warship named Defiance claiming peaceful intentions. "I am High Commander Zixren of the Galactic Concordat. Your presence is unexpected. Humanity has been absent from galactic affairs for 3 centuries. The human's face showed an expression that the translation matrix identified as a smile, a baring of teeth that historically indicated both friendliness and aggression in the contradictory species. "We needed time to resolve some internal matters, Commander. Those matters are now settled." "I see." Zixren's middle eye narrowed. "And your vessel's obvious military capabilities." "The galaxy can be a dangerous place, Commander. We've learned that lesson the hard way." An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "We request permission to send a diplomatic delegation to your station," continued Captain Reeves, "to formally re-establish relations with the Concordat." Zixren's skin flashed with cautionary purples. Protocol demanded he accept such a request, but every instinct warned against allowing unknown humans aboard his station. "That would be acceptable," he heard himself say. "We will prepare Docking Bay 3 for your shuttle. Please limit your delegation to 5 representatives." "Understood." Defiance out. As the communication ended, Lieutenant Cressera approached the commander. "Sir, I must protest. We know nothing about their current capabilities or intentions, which is precisely why we must meet them face to face, Lieutenant." Zixren turned to his security chief. "Double the guard detail, full biohazard protocols, and have the historical archives searched for any tactical information on humans." Aboard the Defiance, Hellas leaned back in her command chair. "They're terrified," observed Dr. Abernathy. "Good," replied Ellis. "Fear breeds caution. Caution prevents mistakes." Lieutenant Commander Victor Kaczynski, the ship's XO, stepped forward. "Captain, are we really sending a delegation?" "Of course. We're diplomats now, Kaczynski." "With respect, Captain, most diplomats don't arrive in warships." Ellis smiled. "Most diplomats aren't human." A sudden alert from the tactical station interrupted them. Officer Kapoor's expression shifted from professional detachment to concern. "Captain, I'm detecting energy fluctuations from the station's weapon systems. They appear to be charging their main defensive array." Ellis's smile vanished. "Yellow alert. Shields up." "Captain," protested Dr. Abernathy, "this could be a standard defensive procedure. Or it could be a preemptive strike against the boogeymen that just returned from the dead." Ellis rose from her chair. "Tactical. Target their primary power conduits. Communications. Hail them again." But before either order could be executed, the Defiance's sensors blared with new warnings. Multiple signatures emerging from the nebula behind us, reported Kapoor, his voice tight. Configuration unknown. Not Concordat designs. Ellis's eyes narrowed. Full scan. Unable to complete, Captain. They're using some kind of sensory dampening field, but preliminary readings suggest biological components, massive ones. On screen, aft view. The view screen shifted to show the space behind the Defiance, where the nebula gases had been empty moments before, now dark. Undulating shapes moved with disturbing organic grace. The forms were massive, each the size of a small moon, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "What the hell are those?" demanded Kaczynski. Dr. Abernathy's face had gone pale. "The reason we came back." Ellis returned to her command chair, her expression grim. "Battle stations, all hands to combat positions." She looked at the alien station on the forward viewer, then at the approaching dark entities behind them. "Lieutenant Chung, hail the station again. Tell Commander Zixbrin we have a situation that concerns us both, and inform him." She paused, watching as the dark shapes began to accelerate toward both the Defiance and the station. "That the Void Swarm has returned, the common enemy." On Vigilance Station, alarms blared across every deck. What had begun as a tense first contact scenario had transformed into something far worse. "What are they doing?" demanded Zixbrin, watching as the Terran vessel suddenly accelerated, executed a maneuver that should have torn it apart, and positioned itself between the station and the approaching dark entities. "They appear to be protecting us, Commander," replied Cressra, her voice laced with confusion. The communication system activated again, and Captain Reeves's face appeared on screen. The human looked different now, focused, intense, with none of the diplomatic veneer from earlier. "Commander Zixbrin, I'm transmitting data on the entities approaching your station. We call them the Void Swarm. They're the reason humanity disappeared 3 centuries ago, and the reason we've returned." Data streams flooded the Concordat systems, displaying information on creatures unlike anything in their records. Vast, semi-organic entities that consumed energy in all forms, from power systems to the bioelectrical signatures of living beings. Predators that hunted across the galaxy, hibernating for centuries before emerging to feed. "Impossible," whispered one of the science officers. "Such creatures would have been detected." "Not if they exist partially outside normal spacetime," interrupted Zixbrin, quickly assimilating the Terran data. "Not if they can mask their presence until they're ready to strike." The largest of the dark entities accelerated, its surface rippling as it closed distance with the Terran ship. "Commander," came Captain Reeves's voice, "your station's defenses aren't calibrated to affect these creatures. Ours are. I suggest you evacuate non-essential personnel and prepare for impact." Zixbrin's skin flashed with decision colors. "Lieutenant, sound General Quarters. Evacuation protocols for civilian personnel only. All defense systems to standby." "Sir." Cressra looked uncertain. "The humans could have approached with their weapons blazing, Lieutenant. Instead, they're positioning to defend us." His middle eye focused on the Terran ship. "Let's see what they can do." Aboard the Defiance, Ellis watched the approaching void entity with the calm of a predator facing familiar prey. "Quantum disruption fields at full power," reported Kapoor. "Chronophasic torpedoes armed and locked." Ellis nodded. "Fire at will." The Defiance's hull shimmered as specialized fields activated. Technologies developed over centuries specifically to combat the Void Swarm. From recessed ports along the ship's spine, missiles streaked toward the approaching entity, their warheads containing exotic matter designed to force the creature fully into normal spacetime. The torpedoes struck, and for a brief moment, the entity's true form became visible, a writhing mass of tentacles and sensory organs surrounding a central maw that could engulf a small moon. The creature emitted no sound, but sensors detected gravitational waves rippling outward as it reeled from the attack. "Direct hit," confirmed Kapoor. Dimensional anchoring successful. Entity is fully materialized. All batteries, open fire, ordered Ellis. The Defiance's weapon systems activated, not the conventional energy weapons used by most galactic powers, but specialized graviton beams and tachyon pulses that attack the very foundation of the creature's existence. Where the beams struck, the entity's matter simply ceased to be, converted to energy that dispersed harmlessly into space. From Vigilant Station, the battle was unlike anything the Concordat officers had ever witnessed. The Terran vessel moved with impossible grace, executing maneuvers that defied known physics while unleashing weapons beyond their comprehension. Their technology, murmured the science officer, it's centuries beyond our most advanced theories. Zixren watched in stunned silence as the human ship methodically dismantled the first of the void entities. But his admiration turned to alarm when he saw the other entities changing course, no longer pursuing the Defiance, but accelerating toward the station instead. They're adapting, he realized, targeting what they perceive as the weaker prey. He opened the communication channel. Captain Reeves, the remaining entities are approaching our position. We see them, Commander, came the immediate response. Your station's conventional weapons won't be effective, but we can help. We're transmitting modification protocols for your defense systems now. Data streamed to the station's computers, simple but brilliant adjustments to their existing technology that would make their weapons at least marginally effective against the Void Swarm. Lieutenant, implement these modifications immediately, ordered Zixren. Sir, security protocols prohibit implementing unverified external code. Override protocols. Authorization Zixren. Alpha 79. As the station's engineers rushed to modify their defenses, the Defiance positioned itself in the path of the approaching entities, buying them precious time. Multiple hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, reported Kaczynski, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Sealing with emergency force fields. Ellis gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered under another attack. Status of the station. They've implemented our modifications, replied Song. Their defensive systems are coming online now. On the view screen, Ellis watched as Vigilant Station's weapon emplacements began firing, their beams now pulsing with the distinctive blue-white signature of chronophasic energy. The modified weapons weren't as effective as the Defiance's purpose-built systems, but they were hurting the void entities. Captain, called Dr. Abernethy from her auxiliary science station, I'm detecting a pattern in the swarm's movements. They're not just attacking randomly. They're searching for something. Ellis frowned. Specify. The way they're probing both our ship and the station. It's methodical. I think they're looking for the keystone. A hush fell over the bridge at the mention of humanity's most closely guarded secret. Is it secure? Ellis asked quietly. Dr. Abernethy nodded. The quantum bolt is undamaged. Good. It stays that way. Ellis turned back to the battle. Tactical, concentrate fire on the lead entity. Engineering. Divert power from non-essential systems to the quantum disruption fields. On Vigilant Station, Zixren and his officers watched in amazement as their modified weapons began to have an effect on the void entities. Where before they would have been helpless, now they were participants in their own defense. Commander, called one of the officers, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from within the Terran vessel, some kind of contained quantum singularity. Zixren's mind raced with implications. Such technology was theoretically possible, but had been abandoned by Concordat scientists as too dangerous. What were the humans protecting that required such power? A violent explosion rocked the station as one of the void entities made direct contact with their outer hull. Hull breach on levels 22 through 25, reported an officer. Emergency force fields failing. Evacuate those sections, ordered Zixren. Then, to communications. Inform the Defiance we have a breach. The entities are entering the station. Ellis's decision was immediate. Kaczynski, prepare a boarding party. Full combat gear, quantum disruptors. I'll lead personally. Captain, protested her XO. Protocols forbid. The only protocol that matters right now is survival, Commander. You have the con. Minutes later, Ellis led a team of 20 combat-hardened humans through the docking tube connecting the Defiance to Vigilance Station. Each wore specialized armor that made them look more machine than human, midnight black with pulsing red circuitry that mimicked the veins of their ship. They encountered the first of the void tendrils near the breach point, writhing appendages of dark matter that seemed to devour light itself. The Concordat security forces were falling back, their modified weapons slowing but not stopping the entity's advance. "Stand aside," Ellis commanded, her voice amplified through her helmet. The alien soldiers looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and hope, then complied. Ellis raised her weapon, a sleek rifle that hummed with power, and fired. A beam of concentrated quantum energy struck the void tendril, severing it from the main mass. The separated piece dissolved into harmless particles. "Target the central mass," Ellis instructed the Concordat forces. "Aim for what looks like sensory clusters." Together, humans and aliens drove the entity back toward the breach, where coordinated fire from both the Defiance and the station's defense systems finally destroyed it. As the immediate threat receded, Ellis found herself face to face with Commander Zixren. The Kintal's skin was pulsing with colors she couldn't interpret, but his central eye was fixed on her with unmistakable intensity. "Your technology," he said simply. "It's not just advanced. It's specific, designed precisely for these creatures." Ellis removed her helmet, meeting his gaze directly. "We've been fighting them for 300 years, Commander, ever since they followed us home from our first extrasolar colony." Understanding dawned in Zixren's eyes. "You didn't abandon galactic society. You withdrew to protect it." "Partially," Ellis acknowledged, "and partially to protect ourselves. When the swarm first appeared, we tried to warn the galactic powers of the time. None believed us. Some even accused us of creating the threat as an excuse for military expansion. So humanity fought alone. We adapted. It's what we do best." Ellis gestured to her armor. "Every piece of technology you see was developed specifically to combat the Void Swarm. We've learned to predict their hibernation cycles, track their movements through subspace. For centuries, we've contained them, prevented them from spreading beyond our territory. Until now," observed Zixren. "Until now," agreed Ellis grimly. "This is just a scouting party. Our long-range sensors detect a full migration approaching. Thousands of entities, not just dozens." The implication hung between them. If a handful of void creatures could nearly overwhelm a Concordat defense station and damage an advanced Terran warship, what would thousands do to the unprepared worlds of the Galactic Concordat? "Why return now?" asked Zixren. "After so long in isolation." Ellis's expression softened slightly. "Because humanity has learned another lesson in 300 years of fighting, Commander. No species survives alone. Not even us." Aboard the Defiance, now docked with Vigilance Station, humans and aliens worked together to repair damage and strengthen defenses. In the station's main conference room, Captain Ellis Reeves and Commander Zixren sat across from each other, data displays hovering between them. "The Keystone," Zixren said, reviewing the information Ellis had cautiously shared. "A device that can permanently seal the dimensional rifts the swarm uses to enter our space." Ellis nodded. "Developed at tremendous cost. It requires specific astronomical conditions to activate, conditions that will occur at the galactic core in approximately 6 months. And if it works, the Void Swarm will be permanently locked out of our reality. 3 centuries of humanity's sacrifice will finally mean something." Zixren's skin rippled with thoughtful blues. "The Concordat Council will need to be convinced. Many will fear your technology more than these void creatures they've never seen." "Then show them today's battle records," Ellis suggested, "and remind them that if humanity wanted conquest, we wouldn't have revealed ourselves by saving one of your stations." The alien commander studied her for a long moment, his three eyes unblinking. You've changed from the humans in our historical records. They describe your kind as aggressive, impulsive, prone to violence. Ellis smiled slightly. We're still all those things, Commander. We've just learned when to direct those traits outward and when to contain them. She leaned forward. Make no mistake, humanity still fights amongst itself. We still argue and compete, and sometimes kill one another. But we do it less than we used to. The Void Swarm gave us a common enemy, a reason to overcome our divisions. Perhaps they can do the same for the galaxy, mused Zixfren. That's what we're counting on. Ellis extended her hand across the table, a human gesture of alliance. Humanity is returning to galactic affairs, Commander. The only question is whether we return as saviors or conquerors. After a moment's hesitation, Zixfren extended one of his four hands, mimicking the human gesture. For the sake of all species, he said quietly, I hope it's the former. As their hands clasped, human and alien joined in tentative alliance. Warning signals blared from both the station and the Defiance. On the display screens around them, long-range scanners showed hundreds of dark signatures emerging from subspace at the edge of the system. The future had arrived sooner than expected. Well, Commander, said Ellis, rising to her feet, it seems the galaxy is about to get a crash course in humanity after all. Zixfren's skin flashed with determination colors. Then let us hope they learn quickly. For all our sakes,